of our phenomenal viewers, listeners, and supporters. I'm your host, Brianna PodcastBri Harris, and I am so excited to be here. If you're a new audience member, we are so grateful to have you. Welcome to another episode of Connected, where we discuss all things mental health, recovery, employment, and stories. Before we dive in, this show is sponsored by Contra Costa Behavioral Health Services, Kaiser, and John Muir. Today's topic is all about how to get involved in advocacy. Our guest, Lauren, is from Fierce Advocates, who amplifies the voices of Black, Latinx, and other parents and caregivers of color. They cater to health and wellness, leadership development, and community engagement and advocacy. A special program they also offer is CoCo Doulas, which are birth professionals who advocate and guide through pregnancy, labor, postpartum, and beyond. This jam-packed episode will be full of insight as Lauren guides us on how to get involved, what Fierce Advocates do for the community, and personal stories. So please give us a warm welcome to Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Very excited.
Of course. So this episode is going to be kind of jam-packed. We have a bunch of layers to kind of follow along, but we do want to keep it digestible for our listeners and our viewers. And so we're going to try to see what we can do there. But for the most part, it's a lot to discuss when you're talking about advocacy and for such an organization that serves a really bigger community, if you must. And so we'll just kind of get right into it. How are you feeling today?
Oh, feeling good. The sun's out.
Mm-hmm.
The sun's out. So natural habitat.
Yeah.
Thriving.
Yes, I love the sun. Like wintertime, springtime, if it's gloomy, I'm not feeling it. But as soon as that sun comes out and it hits like 77 degrees, that's my element.
Yes.
That's where I thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And it makes everyone happier. The vitamin D, it's all good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm just going to go ahead and recap really quickly. Fierce Advocates is based out of Richmond, California, but they also serve Contra Costa County as a whole. Mm-hmm. And so she came all the way from Richmond over here to Concord to do this episode with us.
Yes.
So Lauren has a background in advocacy. I feel like as a teacher, you are automatically an advocate for parents, for the students, for your principals, your staff. Like it is advocacy all in one. And she's done so many other things and she's going to get into that as well. So Lauren, my first question for you, got my handy dandy notes here, is how did your journey even begin?
Oh, wow. I would say I've always been a teacher, and this is even before I even started school. Mm-hmm. I'm one of 5 siblings, so I remember playing teacher with my siblings before even starting school. And then when my sister would come home from school, I remember waiting by the window and waiting for her to say, how was your first day? What was it like? What was school like? So I knew I always wanted to be there because I knew there was something magical happening. But I started, I would say my high school, my senior year, I started teaching 4th graders. So I was doing a prospective teachers program. Mm-hmm. And from there, it was always just a part of my life. Like, like how some people do, like that aside thing that other people do. You're like, oh, I've always done makeup, or I've always done hair or nails or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I've always done teaching. Mm-hmm. It's always my thing that it's something of a part of my life in some way in every season. Mm-hmm. And so when I became a mother myself, that was when it got even more serious because I took time away and I started attending the West County First 5 Center.
Okay.
So that's a family learning center throughout Contra Costa, and it supports families in the very beginning of their journeys, or so I thought. Mm-hmm. And so in the very beginning of my journey, I was actually a mother there taking classes, and I saw a lack of Black parents involved absorbing all this rich stuff that we were learning. But then also I saw, there also weren't Black teachers. There weren't a lot of us there too. So I was like, how can I get involved in this? And then a position became available and I wanted to be able to support in my own community. So my daughters would sit on my lap or sit beside me while I'd be doing story time while we were doing that. And then this work, went to a meeting one day to support and learn more about, I did a lot of the outreach there for Black families as well. And a lot of the work came out of attending a perinatal equity initiative meeting And I went and I learned so much more, but I saw a lot of the things that I was hearing was also being reflected in the classroom. So one day I was teaching an infant massage class, and I was having all the mommies go around and share a little bit about their birth stories. What was the highlight? I just asked for, what's the highlights? There's a lot of moms. I had like minimum 15. And every time I came to a Black mother, she didn't want to share her story. She'd ask to skip. And I'd be like, why? And I couldn't ask you in the middle of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's got to be a highlight. Right. I was like, there's got to be a highlight. Something good happened in your birth. Of course, you have this beautiful baby.
Right.
But they were, if anything, sometimes I could see tears welling up. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to get to the moms before we even have infant massage class. There is something happening.
Yeah.
And so it connected. When I went to the Perinatal Inequity Initiative meetings, I started seeing this is where it's happening. We need to stop it here before we even deliver our babies. And that's how I'm in this work and working here at Fierce and loving the work I do continually.
That's beautiful.
And I still teach. I teach doulas. Yeah.
Right on. So how long ago was that? How long have you been a doula?
We've been 2021. But I would say I've been one when you didn't know I was, like when I didn't know I was one, but professionally I would say since 2021. So only really like 3 years.
Okay. 3, 4. Are you present for the live births as well?
I don't get to go to birth. So I'm less, now I was so front. Now I'm less in the front end, which is so awesome that the team gets to do that. But I'm more in the planning and supporting the doulas. So I'm the doula's doula.
Gotcha.
When they need something, they need help navigating, I'm the one that slows the room down for them and we strategize together.
Okay.
So, I'm the doula's doula.
Doulas need doulas, just like therapists need therapists.
Exactly. Same.
I love that. And I actually can really relate as well because prior to, while I was pregnant, I just had a baby 5 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
I love it. It is. I know Billy's probably tired of hearing about this baby and me talking
so
and people coming into the room like, you had your baby. It does.
You're not the same.
I'm not the same person.
Not the same.
I am not okay. No,
yes.
I'm okay.
A little bit of all that.
Right.
Throw all that in the pot. Yeah.
No, seriously. But like prior to, I would always hear like these tragic stories and are like, oh my God, I had to go through this and the doctors are doing this and my birth didn't go how I planned it. So that's why I became a doula myself. Or that's what, like, I have a friend who's a doula now and she's like, cause I wasn't satisfied with my birth. But so I made sure that I had all of the resources that I could and do as much information as I kind of could during my pregnancy and up to my birth. So my doula, she was like, I think I'm probably called her, reached out to her when I was probably 5 or 6 months pregnant. And then she's like, so we don't have that much time. I have so many things to tell you. Yes. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm here now. So sorry. And so we figured it out. And she was there every week. And she would come to my house and she would, you know, kind of play therapist for us or just ask me, you know, how much water are you drinking? Yes. And have you been eating your vegetables? Just like, you know, things that you need to ask. Conversations I wouldn't have with myself outside of it. She gave us stretches, things I need to be doing while I was in labor. And then while I was in labor, I didn't feel any pain. I didn't have an epidural, nothing like that. Like they had to induce me. And then they like had me hooked up to the monitor and they're like, are you feeling that contraction? I'm like, I don't feel anything. I didn't feel anything until it was time to push.
Wow,
so,
that is an amazing story.
Right, I know.
I love to hear those. And you felt so confident in where you were going because you had a navigator.
Yeah, and like my goal was to not have an epidural in the beginning, and so I was like, okay, like, you know, I need to really like mentally prepare for it. But it was like like I would do it all over again. Like it was just, it was. We gotta
wonder why our grandparents had lots of kids. It wasn't just because there wasn't TV. It was because they felt supported in doing that, and they I'm sure they had people supporting them get ready for that.
They had a lot of birth workers and midwives and people who like specifically do this and not just doctors who come in and they weren't officially called doulas, but that's who they were. They were that woman in the community that came in and said, let's get you ready. What do you need? Yeah. And then they had so many people in community that knew about it. So they were like,
What do you need? You need food. You need.
You need that extra support for sure, and like outside, because your friends and family might not have the best experiences either. So your doula is always going to be the one that keeps you grounded and like, okay,
they can
you
bring
can do
their
this.
traumas into your birth room, into your atmosphere, into your home. And so it's really hard because your doula, it's nice. What's nice about her is she focuses on what you want and where you're trying to go. And so she's like, let's get there. How can we get you there? Step by step.
Yes, she was great. Shout out to Shaylin Rice.
Yes, Shaylin.
Okay, I can talk about pregnancy and having kids all day long, so we're gonna move on, and then we'll probably come back to it a little bit before I get too excited and we're here talking forever.
No worries.
So
I can talk about it.
Yeah, it is, but we will. So my next question is like, what does the involvement in the community look like for Fierce advocates?
Oh, wow. So Fierce has been in the community for about 20 years in Central Richmond.
What were they formerly called?
We were formerly called Building Blocks for Kids. So if you ever hear BBK out in the community, that was our old name. But we really did a big rebranding last year. We really just we just had our awareness event this year. But it really matches more of the core work that we do. We really focus on the advocators in a family, which is who? The parents.
Yeah.
And so we like building blocks for kids. Yes, it's the parents building the blocks, but really we were like, we're the ones that need support, right? As an advocate. And so with Fierce Advocates, a lot of the things that we do is we focus on the parents' wellness and then on the systems that they're going to interact as they advocate for their children. So in my program, it's CoCo Doulas. We focus, that's the very first institution you're going to be dealing with. Birth. You're going to be dealing with the hospital. So how do you navigate in there, right? And then even if you're not in the hospital, if you choose to birth at home, how do you advocate for what you want in that birth space, right? What are the things that you need to be prepared? What are the questions you need to know or the experiences that you're going to experience? So we start with birth, and then we also do our policy and advocacy team.
Okay.
Shout out Dulce. In that team, we do a lot of, once the child grows up, you're going to start interacting now with the school system.
Yeah.
Education is essential. It's a huge part of a child's life. And so how do you navigate that? And how do you be an advocate for your child in that? Because there's going to be a lot of adults that they're going to be interacting with that you don't see a lot. And how can I make sure I'm still touching base with them? How can I make sure that the needs that I want for my child are also being met?
Right.
Because they're the parent away from you. So it's especially that pulls me back into teaching, that we teach parents, and that's one of the very first things that we learned at First Five, is that we were teaching parents that you're the first teacher. You're the first teacher of your child. So whatever things that they may be getting at school, you're still filling in the gaps constantly, right? So it's not like you just leave it there in the classroom and that's your education for the day. Education is outside the class.
Yes.
It is everywhere you go. It is at home. And so that's why it's beautiful that the doula work also encapsulates that it's at home. It's everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You're constantly learning.
Yes. And don't just rely on the teachers to be educating your child. Like it's definitely a balance. And I don't like when certain parents are like, well, you're the teacher, you're supposed to teach them. It's like, no, but the reiteration needs to be at home as well, because I can't be successful at my job if you're not being successful in your job at home.
It's a team.
It is.
It really is a team. And then we have a third program that we also run, which is the health and wellness program. And that program really centers that advocacy is hard. And it has hard times where you need to rest. And that in the center of rest and healing, we become stronger advocates. So, and also our creativity starts sparking, right?
Yeah.
When we allow ourselves to rest. So that's where we have the sanctuary groups, where we have Black Women's Sanctuary, we have Latina Sanctuary, and we also have a men's group called Holding Space. That allows us to allow ourselves to rest so that we can come back full force. Our logo is a flame with people, and it makes sense. We're ignited in the work that we do when we advocate, but all flames need to have a moment of rest, and then they get reignited again. So
that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing encapsulating what Fierce Advocates do, because it is a program that everybody should know about. And like you said, it starts with just like with pregnancy and birth, and what kind of things are you going through during your pregnancy that you might pass on to your child once they're here, and it's just a cycle. So it's a really cool program, and I applaud you for that, because it can be very emotionally taxing, and I know you do appreciate the health and wellness program aspect of it, so that you can get a chance to, like you said,
so true.
Get things together, get the ball rolling again.
So true. Yeah, it doesn't, we're definitely, as marginalized community, we have to rest in order to be able to move forward full strength.
Yes. And coming
Yeah.
from a community where it's like you need to work.
Yes.
And sometimes it's like rest is frowned upon.
Oh, yeah.
From certain generations,
Yes.
and certain cultures. It's good, because I know, like, I have family members that's like,
What
your
are you
dad
doing?
just died, you're still working, like, take some
Yes.
time to kind of, well, I need to work through this. Like, no, be in touch with your emotions.
Well, capitalism kept us there. It keeps us there. And it will keep you there if you allow it to. And you getting outside of it, even you breastfeeding, saying, I need to pause and feed my baby.
Yeah.
It throws a spin in that monster, in that machine. And so allowing yourself to be that is okay.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. All right, Lauren. Well, thank you so much once again. So my next question really is, and you kind of touched on it a little earlier. So you mentioned you worked as a teacher. How did that experience impact your decision into becoming a doula? And can you give us like a direct moment or story, so we kind of know how you were able to do, or like why you did it? But is there like a story, a direct like moment, like, okay, this is starts from pregnancy?
Oh, okay. So when I was a young mother, my daughter's going to be 10 in fall.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I also have a 7-year-old too. But I remember, and this is funny that you mentioned that, a story. I remember my parents were living outside of the county.
Okay.
So I was living here with my husband, and I was trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? I was in school at the time as well. And I remember reading the word doula. Actually, I remember literally reading the word doula on my packet, my pregnancy packet. And I was like, what is that? And I remember reading about it. And then I remember saying, oh, this sounds like it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
This sounds like this is going to be something that I wish I had this, because I love, as a teacher, you always put yourself in a state of, I'm always a student. Really, you really feel like a student forever. All of us should be consistent students always. But I remember being like, wow, I want someone to teach me more. I want to learn more. But this is something that I probably can't afford. And she seems like she's going to be a lady that is just out of my reach. And so I was, just like any other parent, I was just constantly digging for the information. But, and your provider doesn't give you all this information.
They give
like,
you a pamphlet and say, how you doing? You have any questions for me?
Yes,
All right, bye.
you're not, it's nothing the same. And so this work, everything that I wish I had is what I always think about putting into the program. Like, oh man, I wish we had this. I wish we had that. And I remember actually calling it in my mind. I remember begging my mom one day. I was like, Mom, I wish I had an empower hour where someone would come and empower me, whether it was just through words or through education or informing me, so that I could feel empowered before I go into the next spot. I remember saying that. And so I always remind the doulas when they go in, I'm like, that is an hour for you to also allow the client to just be and to share fears.
Yeah.
Let them share all of the things that they're worried about, because you're there to reduce the stress.
Yeah.
So that is one big part of our work, is we reduce stress. And there's so much stressors in our lives that it is affecting our baby's outcomes and our birth outcomes and our own health. So being aware of those, all the things that I want to make sure that it's there for the clients.
It's like, be the change you want to see in the world.
Really is.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple formula, but the being part is kind of hard if you don't know where to go.
Yeah, or where to start. Then you get overwhelmed, then you don't want to do anything.
Exactly.
I'm glad that you touched on affordability, because that was another one of my questions. So like, a common myth that causes apprehensiveness about needing a doula is affordability. Is this something you've experienced? If not, can you give us a common myth about needing or becoming a doula?
Oh, okay. Wow. That's two parts.
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's two parts. So one, needing a doula, a lot of people feel like at first they're like, you don't need one.
Yeah. I could do without.
Right. It just sounds like she's a lady that comes in, and in everyone's minds, you just think of the Zen lady doing yoga in your living room floor. And you're like, I don't need that. If you're not even a yoga mama, that's not your thing, right? You're like, I don't think I need that. So one, you really want, that's what's the beauty of our work is there's so many different personalities of the doulas. So you could get someone that's very similar to your sister that's just talking to you, right? So that's approachable. That's not this whole bag that you imagine, this image, right, of what a doula is. But a lot of people feel like, why do I need somebody to teach me something? And then also it feels weird. A lot of people are not used to someone coming into their home in the American health system, right? Coming into their home and being like, hey, I'm going to support you and teach you things right here on your couch. Now, the pandemic did open that up a little bit, but there was a screen separating us. Now, this is also, we do virtual, mind you, we do virtual services, but what's nice is we also come into your home. So we will literally be there side by side, and we know that that's the community health worker model, that it works. Being side by side in community. Yeah. And it's where someone feels safe. You understand them from just the elements and the smells of their home, you know them, right? So I guess a lot of people are afraid when we launched in the middle of the pandemic, people were afraid of someone coming into their home. People were when we were wearing masks, all of that. So that was the scary part, is everyone was withdrawing from going into homes, and we were going in. We were like, we come into your home because this is a serious issue. We're
kicking the door down.
Yeah, we're like, if you want us, and we welcomed that. We said, if you want us to be virtual, we will. But if you want us in your house, we are coming.
Yeah, I vouch for that.
It does, and a lot of people think that when someone's coming to your home, it's going to cost. There's going to be a fee. There's got to be something. This is very personal, right? Like, just like DoorDash, when they come to their house, there's a little tip added at the end.
Everybody wants a tip now.
Yes.
Like, you just rang me up for my egg sandwich.
There you go.
Why do you need a tip?
Yes. So everyone feels like they're, and that's when that actually started, was the pandemic. That's when that tip thing started.
I don't like it.
And so, we're getting used to it. And so people feel like, what's the tip?
Yeah. What's the catch?
And so even when people ask to this day, they go, how much is it going to be? Is it like, no, girl, it's free.
Yeah.
It is free because this babies come and we don't want to add an extra bill to your head before a baby comes.
Yeah.
No. So yes, the affordability it did come a lot from the pandemic, and also from us thinking that delivery to my home is going to cost me something. It's going to have a tip.
Yeah. So with
or charge.
that, so who pays you guys? Are you guys a nonprofit and you get paid through that?
Okay. Yes. So actually, Contra Costa Health Services, well, that was their own name, or Contra Costa Health, they actually are our funder. So,
okay.
So we have the direct support from the county, which is really beautiful because we have providers come in and they also train the doulas from our community training all the way even to their continuing education. So they're getting direct support from providers on heavy topics like family planning, childhood vaccines, SIDS. They're getting direct support. So, and it's nice because they get to advocate for their clients by asking the questions that their clients have directly to a provider that sometimes the clients won't ask because they're shy or they don't know. But it's nice we get to be that for them. And then relay it back to them in the safety of their own homes.
Awesome. So I'm glad that you put it out there that it's free.
It is free $99.
It is. And if you want to become a doula, you're going to get paid still.
Yes.
It's not like you're just volunteering.
Absolutely. And that is another thing too. Doula work has been something that's been free for so long. And now the state of California and there's other states across the country actually that are recognizing that it's a really cost-effective way to have better birth outcomes.
Yes.
And so now we're starting to see, and here in California is actually now one of the highest Medi-Cal reimbursements for doulas.
Oh, wow.
So they're recognizing doulas this trade, it's a trade, as being a very important aspect in the labor and delivery room. And so that is why that's another aspect of our program, that we serve families, but also that we train more doulas, train more Black doulas to be out in community, so that however you want to be a doula, you still now have access to also earning a very steady, good income.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna be a doula after this.
Yeah, why not? You can be a doula and this.
I know, right?
And doulas, that's another thing. They usually do have another thing that they do. Yeah, they love the work that they do, but they do lots of things. I've seen doulas work as the chefs. I've seen doulas work as teachers. I've seen them also be working in the NICUs. I've seen them everywhere. Yeah. They do lots of things. They wear many hats.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. And I feel like ever since I've had a child, I'm like obsessed with my child too, but then also like all things pregnancy and birth work and in early childhood education. Like it's such an awesome thing, and I'm glad that we have positive resources now, instead of just like, oh, I gotta go to the hospital, have this baby in this position. It's like, no, you can move, you can do this, you can do all these things.
It's a transformative time. So when you just said that, like, you're like, ever since you became a mother, same for me, right? Ever since I became a mother, I realized, whoa, this is a whole thing that needs support. And I remember too that it's also the most, since it's so transformative, like literally your body is growing as big as a watermelon, right? And the families everyone's identities are changing too. Now partner's going to be turning into dad or mom. And then everyone's grandma and grandpa are shifting names. So it involves so many people that I noticed when you asked me before about also why I got into this work, I started realizing in my infant classes, that is the most pivotal time that a mother is most open to learning. And we see this in the program. Once they have the baby, sometimes things change. They're like, I'm sorry, doula, I can't keep in contact with you. I'm kind of busy. Capitalism starts seeping back into the home. Work starts. All that happens again. But during the gentle period of being pregnant, whether it's a hard pregnancy or not, their ears are more open to learning. Yeah. Because you're in such an uncharted territory, right? So you want someone to take you through that jungle. So that was also why I wanted to get into this work, was I knew that this is when parents are the most open to listening. Because even after they have their little one, even when they're 2 and 3, they're like, oh, I know how he is. I got, it shuts down. Yeah. The window of learning shuts down. And it's very similar to when I saw in early childhood, when babies are from 0 to 5, it's very open, the learning time frame too, for language and everything else. And that's because there's fast development happening. So wherever there's a lot of fast development happening in the human life, that's where you're very, very open to help me. I need help, or I kind of want support.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because like in my situation, so my child has other siblings. And so when we were having our conversation, it was when I would ask like, oh, how do I do this, or how do I do that? Or I would ask my partner like, well, how do you feel? And at first in the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, I already kind of knew that because I've been a dad before. Yes. And then I'm like, but you haven't been a dad with me before. Right. And we're in this whole new, uncharted territory. And so then there were things that she was able to teach him. And I'm just like, and I think his previous spouse wasn't able to, I don't think that she gave birth naturally. So it's like, it's a whole different like experience. Yes. And so like, I need you to get in the mind frame of you're having a child with me and not just I'm becoming a dad again. I already know this.
Right. So, and that it's so different every pregnancy. It is. So even when you have another, if you guys decide to, it's going to be totally different. Not the same. Each child is as different as every finger on your hand.
Right.
And every pregnancy can be very different too.
Yeah. Well, right on. So to bring it on home, how can someone become a fierce advocate or receive advocacy?
Oh, awesome. Okay. So, well, one, I have to mention, again, we do have, we host a community-based doula training. So if you want to become a literal fierce advocate, CoCo Doula. We will be doing trainings in community. We usually do one once a year or once every other year. Last year we ended up doing two, one in the spring and one in the fall. And that was unexpected. But we do, if you see yourself becoming a doula, you're interested in becoming a doula, please reach out to Fierce Advocates. We would love to support you in that because it is an in-demand job right now. It really is. And babies are not going to stop being born.
They're not.
So if that's what you want to do, hit me up. But then also how to become a fierce advocate, like in general in life. Well, fierce makes you think of flames. Find something that fires you up. Wherever something that ignites you, or it's a flame inside of yourself that you don't see dying out, or it's something that always calls you back. You're like, why is this always a part of my life? It's because it's the fire. It's the fire in your life that is going to continually, every path you walk, it's going to light up. So I would say find that. And it's usually not hard because it's usually in your strengths.
Yeah.
It's your strength that's right there in front of you. It's something that never dies. And it's going to be something you're passionate about. And it's also something that you almost could do for free. Because it's so a part of you, you don't even see it as, I need to be paid for this. So that's how a lot of doulas for a long time, they weren't being paid.
Yeah.
Because it was a natural part of who they are. And so it's just going to feel like an extension of you, just flexing the muscle more.
Yeah.
So to become a fierce advocate, definitely find what makes you hot, what riles you up, or what
gives
is
you chills.
Yes. And what is something that people often ask you? It's there. If they're always asking you about cameras, or if they're always asking you about relationships, it's right in that golden spot, whatever you hear a lot.
Yeah. And you got to nurture it.
Yes, you have to nurture it. And then you just have to start stepping out on, okay, where can I support others? Advocacy is supporting. So when we think of parents, we're supporting our family when we support our children. When we make them, a lot of this work, especially in doula work, it's about making sure that the family has a strong foundation. And that foundation is birth, because they will become very inconfident or not confident parents because they had such a traumatic birth experience that they'll feel like, I'm not sure if I'm very good at breastfeeding. It shows real quick. I'm not sure if I'm very good at breastfeeding because my birth experience wasn't even that great. And now I'm not even sure if I'm really good at teething, and I'm not really good at any of this. And it just starts going in a downward spiral. So we want that first experience with being a parent strong.
Yeah.
So that empowered. You will go into the next advocacy levels with like, I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to figure it out.
That's
the mindset.
It's all parenting.
Yes, it's about consistently. What doulas do is we just give you keys and we go, whichever door you want to open, I'm there with you. I will open it with you. And then comes a part when we leave you, we go, I give you all the keys I can give you for this season. I hope the next season you go into, you'll start using more of them and finding more keys. So that's a lot of the work we do.
Oh, no. I love it. Well, Lauren, is there anything that you want to lastly leave us with? You want to tell us, you want to bring awareness to before we conclude this episode?
Yes, I want to say that I want to remind the audience that Black women's birth experiences, you've seen them across the country about the news, about what's going on, and like that many of them are dying. We're dying, right? And a lot of people go, well, why do you need so much support? And maybe it's the choices you're making, or maybe it's the communities you live in, that's what's causing these issues.
Yeah.
And I just want to put it out there that, there's much research to support this. It is not the choices we're making. It is literally the systems that we're interacting with and the barriers that exist in our community that have been here long before any of us were even born, sadly. So it's, as we're trying to just navigate those, we're being hit with them every time. And every time we get hit with them, it causes a new stress, which causes more stress to our babies without us knowing. And then we see it in the birth room. And so I just want to highlight that it is not the choices that we make. We cannot earn or learn our way out of these birth disparities. So a Black woman making lots of money can still have these exact outcomes as a woman living in a very hard community, right? So what's happening there? Now, she made good decisions, right? She made good decisions. So what happened? It's the systems against Black women as we navigate in each of these institutions.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that there, that it is not choices.
Systematic.
Yep.
A lot of things are systematic.
We cannot earn or learn it out.
Yeah.
We can't.
It is. Everything's an institution. When you think about hospitals, schools, they're all institutions. I remember I seen this documentary called The Business in Being Born, and Ricky Lake did it some years ago. I want to say like in the early 2000s. And that was one of the documentaries that my doula actually had me watch. And I actually watched this before I even thought about being a parent. And I was just like, wow, I didn't know it was like this. And then when I became a parent, when I was pregnant, I rewatched it, and I was just like, this is so scary. Now I just want to have a baby at home, But
yes, it does.
I ended up not doing that, but still, I'd do it again.
Yes. And we have to also not be afraid to give life, because what's interesting is in our country, because even just looking at that documentary, it highlights that it's expensive. And I know you guys are hearing a lot of these words, DINKs, right? Dual income, no kids, right? So everyone, you starting to see weddings and stuff, no kids. Everything's no kids. Like, my gosh, I'm a mom with 2 kids. Like, why? We can't go anywhere. We just got to go to the park. And no, what it is we cannot, the best societies support families. We always look at the Netherlands and all these great places, right? And really what they're doing is they just support families.
All community.
Yes, they support families. So you're going to have a good community if you just support it. And if you support the families as they're navigating. Some of my doulas, they're literally postpartum moms themselves. They literally carry their babies on their backs to meetings, or they'll be in the middle of breastfeeding while we're doing a meeting. And it's because I want them to know that babies are welcome into this world. We will never push down a woman or a person from feeling like a baby is a burden. That is not the business. We're not in that business. When we're not going to even make you feel like a baby is a burden. We're going to help you see, even though all the things that you have going on in your life, where's the clear path for you to get to the next step? That's the job.
Absolutely. And I'm going to keep saying this, but I love it. Well, Lauren, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, you sharing some wisdom and empowering our audience and our listeners. And that is the end of our episode.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye.